My book, Happy Campers, 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults, is not just the story of my own camp, but is the story of many camps all over the world who are promoting the social and emotional growth of kids through intentional strategies. This bonus episode is a recording of one of my Happy Campers interviews with a camp director from one of the day and resident camps who were in my series that was originally aired on Facebook Live and is also available in video form on my website at sunshine-parenting.com. Enjoy this conversation with a camp director who runs an amazing program. Well, hello, everybody. This is the Happy Campers interview series, and you just missed some major technological scrambling that Julie and I were just doing. So it's like a mini technological miracle that we're here with you at 12:04 p.m. today on Tuesday. We did it, but it required multiple devices and some seeking support tech because you know what? We're camp people, not tech people. And so, yes. So anyway, the Happy Campers interview series is a series that I've been doing. I'm interviewing really amazing camp directors who have been at their camps for so many years and are very committed to the social and emotional and character growth of their campers. And Walton's Grizzly Lodge is certainly one of those amazing programs, due in no small part to Julie Walton, who is one of 4 directors there. So Julie, welcome to the series. I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're here.
We did it. We absolutely did it. And I was thinking about camp and those exact words you just said. I'm not in the tech business. I'm in the kid business. But we are in the connecting business, right? So we did manage to connect, you and I. Here we are. Great. Miracle, as you said. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Julie, talk about your background, both kind of before camp and even some of the things that you do simultaneous with camp, because I think listeners will love to get to know you.
Sure. Well, I am not a camp kid. I never went to summer camp as a kid, although I tried to get my parents to let me go. And I got it. I don't think we're going to do that. So I never went as a child, although when I was in high school, I was able to be a camp counselor for our local elementary school science camp. And as the luck would have it, I was assigned to a group of boys. So as a 17-year-old high school student, they gave me a group of about 12 boys and just said, you're going to be great, really. I had very little training, and needless to say, it was quite an experience, but one that I really did love. So that was my first step into camping. I did grow up going camping, but not in a traditional summer camp setting. So fast forward, I was in college. I was studying to get a business degree. And I thought, I need a summer job. And I got offered a job from Walton's Grizzly Lodge summer camp. I shared that story with my parents, and they were like, Walton's Grizzly Lodge? I think that's the camp you wanted to go to when you were a kid. So my mom loves to tell the story. Well, now you get to go to Walton's Grizzly Lodge. So I did go to Walton's Grizzly Lodge. This is over 30 years ago. And it really had a profound effect on my life. You hear that from so many people, whether they are campers or staff members or people just have had a connection with summer camp. I went to camp. I changed my major the very next year. I ended up becoming an elementary school teacher so that I could continue to go back to camp summer after summer. I met my husband there, met most of my best friends there. And I, again, became a school teacher so that I could go back to camp, so that I could focus my off-season life on working with kids. When my husband's parents retired, we took over the business along with his brother, Jared, and his wife, Erica. And so now the 4 of us own and direct camp. And that's what I do.
How long, Julie, did you teach and what grade level?
Sure. So I taught for 10 years, elementary school mostly, from 2nd grade through 6th grade. I was in public education at a time when there was actually a lot more funding for some different approaches to education. So at one point, I actually had a multi-age classroom. So I had 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders in my classroom. And,
Wow.
I look back now and I talk to teachers who are teaching now, and they say that, how could you meet every single need of every single child? And they're all different grades. And, um, you know, that same approach to a multi-age classroom is very similar to camp in that they're just all individuals. Just because two children are in the same grade does not mean that they are at the same level, have the same needs, need the same approach. And that's a lot like camp in that, our kids are all there with different needs, different expectations. They bring a different skill set to the community, and we really need to meet them where they are. So, 10 years. But then I had my first daughter, and I stayed home. Well, actually, Adam stayed home the first year with her, and that was wonderful for him. But I was just really wanting to do that as well. So, I left teaching and focused on raising our girls and camp.
That is amazing. I think you're a perfect example of, sometimes, I mean, we've talked about this before, how people think when they hear the word camp director, it doesn't really bring to mind, some very professional kind of image for most people.
Mm-hmm.
But you're a perfect example of a camp director who has a vast amount of knowledge and training and experience with kids that you brought to your role and that you still bring to your role. So I think that parents could be really reassured to know if they send their kid to Walton's that you have a lot of experience there beyond just how many years is it now at camp?
Well, I say 30 something, 32, 31, 30. I don't know. We just do decades now, Audrey. Decades.
Yeah, 3 decades. It's a lot of time, a lot of kids, a lot of experience at camp. Okay, so let's talk about Walton's, like where you are and the ages of your kids that come and just all that good stuff, because many people listening are probably not at all familiar with summer camp in general or Walton's in particular. So if you're talking to someone who knows nothing about camp or Walton's, talk about your program and everything.
All right. Well, so Walton's Grizzly Lodge was founded in 1926 in San Francisco by Mom and Pop Walton. And it started out as a school. And Mom Walton was a woman ahead of her time. She started the school called a Child's Garden. Pop Walton was the bus driver. And they absolutely had their hands in every part of that school. So Mom taught, Pop drove. The kids obviously learned all the basics, reading, writing, and math, but they also learned a lot about the arts and science, and it was a beloved school. It was so beloved that the story has been told to me that the kids really wanted a summer program as well. So they started a program in the summer in Lagunitas, the summer camp there in Marin County, San Francisco Bay Area. And then eventually they moved it up to the site where it is now in the 1940s. And that site is in Plumas County, so about an hour from Truckee near Lake Tahoe. And it's been there ever since. We have our own lake, and camp life is really situated around that lake, a historic lodge that was built when they used to harvest ice off the lake there. So you'll hear our lake referred to as Grizzly Ice Pond, because before refrigeration, that's where they got the ice. You may have heard of all these different ice ponds in the area up there. Let's see, about camp. So we started at age 7 and we go till 14. There's a leadership program for our 15 and 16-year-olds. And kids come for 1 week or 2 weeks, or they'll come for a whole month when they combine sessions. We have a week-long backpacking program. That's our outdoor adventure program. And again, camp life really is situated around our lake right there. Over 40 different activity choices. So kids can water ski, or they can go to the ropes course. There's a skate park and the tennis courts and the horseback ride, and on and on and on and on and on.
So tell me, and yeah, exactly. Okay. So it's boys and girls. How many campers do you have at one time at Walton's?
175 campers at a time.
Okay. Yeah. And I think it's kind of unique. One of the things that you've told me about is how kids get to sort of pick what they want to do, how that process works. So explain sort of that, that autonomy that kids get and how it works for what kids figure out what they're doing each day at Walton's.
Well, I love to talk about this part. I especially love to talk about it because it reminds me of Grandpa Joe, who just passed away this year at 97, just an amazing man. And he was the one who developed the way that we run our program in this process of campers choosing their own activities. So 3 times a day, campers choose their activities. In the morning, they get to choose their 2 morning activities. In the afternoon, they choose 2 more. And then in the evening, there's an opportunity for a 5th activity period. And it is really one of the things that makes our camp really unique and adds to the culture of our camp. It dovetails really nicely with the philosophy of our camp, this idea of making choices. And kids don't always get their first choice. Sometimes they don't get their second choice. Sometimes they don't even get their third choice. Most of the time, though, they get one of their top choices. And that whole process is really a lot about who we are and what we value in a camp program.
Do you talk to the kids about picking things, even if their friends aren't doing it, and sort of having that kind of self-direction that you want to try something, even if your friends aren't?
We do. Yeah. It's built into our whole program, our whole orientation, our getting to know campers in the first, few hours that they're even there. So a big topic of conversation when kids come up among their groups with their counselors are, what are you most excited to try? What is it? Why are you here? What do you hope to do? And beyond just the activities, make new friends or, be away from home or whatever those things are. But in addition, their activity choices. And then as campers are starting to choose those activities, the conversations around the table, around their dorm life is really around, what do you guys think you might do tomorrow? Counselors know, well, I'm going to just go with my friend, which I like to do that too. I like to go where Audrey Monkey's going, right? We just were at a conference. Where are you going, Audrey? I want to go. Because we can talk about it. We can share in that. So it's a big part of it. But another big part is, I really want to go to archery. And Audrey, my friend, doesn't want to go to art, I don't know. But I really do. But I'm not going to go. And so counselors really stepping in. Hey, what would happen if you went? It's 1 period. You're not signing up for it for life. You're not, committing to this as your, hobby forever. So, yes, it's a big part of us getting kids to step out of that comfort zone, to go without friends, to go do things they maybe thought they would never like or that they're afraid of or whatever reason.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that is kind of unique. So it's a cool aspect of your program. And I'm sure a lot of your kids really enjoy that ability to decide what they want to do. And I also think even the not getting your first choice thing is part of life too, because isn't that kind of life that you have to be flexible and depending on what happens, things don't always go the way you planned. And so learning to bounce back from maybe minor disappointments, it's also probably a good skill that they learn.
I have a favorite story. We have lots of favorite stories as camp directors, but one of my current favorites is I was walking through camp and there was a young camper about 10 years old and just sitting, that look that like this day is just the pits. Like it's summer. Come on, what's going on? So I said, hey, what's going on? It's like, I have to go to beach games. I don't even know what beach games is. I don't even want to go. I have to go. They're making me. It's like, who's making you? Well, the story ends up, he chose it, but he chose it because his very first choice was not available. And besides, he had already been to that very first choice several times. So you can't live at the skate park and other kids needed an opportunity to go. And so, gosh darn it, he had to go to beach games and he was disappointed and he didn't even know what it was. And it was an outrage. And this is just stinks. It was a big deal. We chatted, we talked. I'll go with you. I don't really want you to go with me, Julie. All right. I'll go by myself. Okay. Tell me how that goes. All right. He stands up. He sits back down. I don't even know where it is. See, beach games is stupid. Long story short, he goes to beach games. I walked him around, came back. I see him at lunch. Beach games. When are they offering beach games again? This is my favorite thing in the world. He's a beach games ambassador because he went down there. He had the time of his life. He couldn't even believe it. Anyway, so yes, sometimes you don't get your first choice, your second choice, and then you're a beach games ambassador.
Okay, that's so funny. I have a blog post that I wrote called The Blessing of the Least Favorite Activity. And I based it on the Wendy Mogul book, The Blessing of the Skin Knee, and how a lot of times that growth and the great things happen when we least expect it, or when something is like we have a negative attitude about something and then we turn it around. So that's a great story. I love that story.
It is.
Yeah. So, okay. So also you have a long tradition. So you guys, so Ma and Pa Walton started the camp. Are you guys the third or fourth generation?
We're the fourth generation owners and directors. Yep.
Okay. Which is really a cool thing. And what year was it started again?
1926.
Okay, so you're coming up on, it'll be 100 years in just 7 years.
In fact, right before we got, in our scramble to get the tech right, I was saying to my husband, how many years is it? He goes, seriously? I'm like, 94, right? Or he's just laughing. It's like, hey, we're going Facebook Live. I need to know. So yeah, coming up on 100.
That's amazing. And so I imagine a lot of your campers might be children or even grandchildren of past campers. Do you have that kind of like family tradition?
We do, a second generation and third generation campers. And we have like I said, we have this big historic lodge. And one of the things that is on the wall are plaques with campers' names who are second generation. And so when I first started there, the names were hanging on the wall, and the amount of names that are on that wall, the big discussion now when we get together as a family is, what are we going to do with all of these plaques? Like we need to figure out where we're going to put them all. There's so many kids who are coming now from families who have grown up with camp. So yeah, it's wonderful.
That is so great. That's a good problem to have. Maybe you just need to build a new lodge.
Yeah. A museum.
Bigger. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so that's great. I think that, for families who've experienced a camp, specifically their own camp, how wonderful it is for them to send their kids. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about what it's like for a brand new family, never been to Walton's, first time going to camp.
Right.
Is it, because I think that sometimes people who aren't familiar with it think, well, everybody will know each other, or I didn't go there or whatever. So I'm sure a lot of your campers, their parents didn't come to Walton's.
Right.
So talk about what you do to welcome in new families, first time campers. How do you help them, acclimate to Walton's?
Well, and I know you know this, Audrey, this is so common that phone rings and I get a mom typically or a dad who starts with this big, hi, I really want my child to go to camp and they really want to go, but, and then ... right? The parent is so worried about, there's a list of things. And oftentimes at the top of that list is, well, all of these kids know each other, right? Am I sending my child into this camp that's been around since 1926? And Julie on Facebook Live just said they have to build another lodge to put all the names in there. Why am I going to send my kid into this situation? When the reality of that is, even if your parents went to camp or your grandparents, it's new for every child the first time they go to camp. And we understand that. My husband and I, and his brother Jared, his wife Erica, we're all parents, and we send our kids off to various, experiences, knowing that it can be challenging for them, when they get there. So part of the camp experience, whether you're brand new to camp, our camp and your family is, or not, is engaging on that first day in making sure kids' very basic needs are met. You know where to go, who your person is to ask questions, how to navigate the lay of the land, everything from camp, all of the traditions. What does that bell mean? We're going into the lodge. Where do I sit for this? So all set up so that campers know where to be and how to navigate. And then, of course, we're working with our counselors very closely on how to help children make friends. A simple thing as knowing each other's names. That seems like maybe a very tiny thing, but kids need to know everybody's name in their group. We need to practice it. Some kids, it takes a little bit longer. And so the counselor's working with the kids just to know the names of the kids in their group, a little bit about everybody, connecting campers, maybe someone who's been there before, somebody who hasn't, go set the table together, so that especially in the first 24 hours, the focus is on really bringing those kids together. And I hear it all the time. Parents bring their kid to Walton's Grizzly Lodge. They're a little nervous if they're a first-time camper. They sit down with them. Oh, there's my husband. Hey, Adam. Come say hi to Audrey. Oh, there.
Hey, Adam.
It's really a mom and pop shop here. He's getting, he's getting the special events binder because we're working on something really top secret. Anyway, when they get there, parents will say goodbye to their camper. And oftentimes they're like, oh, there seems to be a lot of kids that know each other, or my child seemed a little quiet. And the parents go, we have lunch, and I'm telling you, it's just a few hours before it feels like those previous connections aren't there. Kids are connecting with people. It's very intentional. So yeah, it can be hard for parents for sure, who haven't had that experience. But once we get going, it really is just a short amount of time before we're in the flow.
Well, I think that's really reassuring and should be for parents, because although it seems like common sense that you'd make sure that everybody learning each other's names would be a priority, that doesn't happen everywhere. I mean, I've had my kids start things like sports teams or something else where they neglect to make sure the kids know each other's names. And so that just basic thing is should be a huge comfort to parents of first-time campers, that their child will be known by name, by all the other kids in the group right away, which is a really important thing to happen.
And you know, it's the structure of the organization. So our kids they know where they're going to sit for meals. You know, every element of camp is focused on making connections, having kids belong to this organization from the moment they get there till the moment they go home. So we designed it into our program, just like I know you do at yours and camps across the country. Kids come in, you know where you're going to sit for your meal. You're not wandering around with a tray trying to figure out where you're going to sit. When you sign up for activities, you have a special place where you're to be with your counselor in a certain format, so that they belong, they know what to do, where to be, how to navigate.
This is why most well-run camps do this a lot better than school. I don't know about you, but I remember going to a new school and that horrifying worry. Where am I going to sit at lunch?
Right.
Who am I going to sit with? And so just that alone makes most camps completely different for kids socially, because you have a place to belong before you've even arrived. There are people waiting for you who know where you're going to be. And that's really cool. So Julie, I want to talk about you have a lot of specific things. You've already mentioned some of them that you focus on at Walton's, just specific outcomes that you're looking at beyond just the kids having a great time and learning some new activities. So when you think about your focus and how you train your staff, you've already mentioned some of the social skills. What else do you really focus on to help kids with kind of their social and emotional skills or character development while they're at Walton?
Sure. Well, you're right. There's so many. And being in camp, we know, right, that at the same time, we are working on just a myriad of things with these kids. And that's why kids come home and they are sold. I love camp, you know, and the parents like, what's that? You know, if I had to really define, you know, at Walton's, what we're focusing on every day, every minute, it's really a balance between independence and being very connected. So oftentimes those two things, people say a very independent person might be less connected than another person. But for me, the crux of what we do is that balance. And if we can constantly and continually focus on those two traits and help kids develop in both ways, then I think we're really, really helping in some very big ways. So, you know, independence, parents think, oh yeah, well, they're away, so that's independent enough. They're just without me. But it is a process of independence, making choices about your activities, independence, unpacking all of your own stuff, navigating with your counselor and the other members of your group about who's going to get which bed and how we're going to set up our cabin group together. You know, independence about learning that when you've made an activity choice and it's not your favorite, you're going to go and you'll be there. You can make another choice the next day, but really having that ownership. But that paired with teaching kids how to be truly connected with other people, which seems strange that we might have to teach those skills. I think that's where the power really lies. And so the connections that we're making obviously start from the fact that we're out in nature. We spend most of our time outside. And so that is just good in general. But in addition, we're free of technology. And boy, that's becoming really cliche now, right? About putting down the screens or limiting screen time. But literally, when I say nobody's on their phone, I mean, I'm not on my phone. I mean, at all. I hide my phone in my office, even in a drawer, because phones out in public send a message that at some point I might get to pick up that phone, and I'm not. not when I'm in camp. So camp is this place where we're super intentional about those connections. So that's what I would say we really focus on, is about the balance between being extremely independent and also very connected with the people in our community there at camp.
That's such a great combo, and something that I know you actually even started a whole side business with is your intentionality around meal times and what happens at meal times. And I feel like you could share some tips about what you do at Walton's that could help parents at home kind of create those closer connections around meals. So what are some of your thoughts and practices that you do to help with that connection at meal times?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we focus on at Walton's, and I know camps across the country focus on and really do a good job of this, is about having kids be contributors. So being a contributor in any community that you're a part of, in a camp community, being a contributor is really powerful, because you know your role, you know that you offer something to the community, you know that the community is depending on you for that role, right? And oftentimes you're recognized for your strengths. So a lot of building a really strong connection in the community is about making sure that people know how to contribute and that they are contributing to their community. So around meals specifically, what does that mean? Well, at camp, everybody has a job related to the meal. We eat family style at camp. We all start at the same time. I don't know if you've ever had this situation in your family. I know I still do, and that is that the food's ready. It's kind of a hustle and bustle. We're all sitting down to have dinner, and then so-and-so in my family has already started eating, and I'm still dishing up my plate, and I'm thinking, hold on, I'm trying to get to the table. And not always, but sometimes we just have to stop, and it's kind of like this starting together so that there's a definite beginning to this event that we're undertaking to have a meal together. So for parents out there who are saying, all right, I like this idea of everyone contributing, but reality is I don't have time to do a big, huge thing where we're all contributing and I'm making homemade meals together and but those contributions can be more than just helping you cook. They can be just making decisions about what you're going to eat. They can be making decisions about where you're going to eat. They can be making decisions about the topic at the table. So at camp, for example, there's the typical server and the setter and the scraper, the person that goes up and gets the food and brings it back. Those little things that we do in camp can be replicated at home, and it doesn't have to be every night. I don't want the parents are watching, are like, right, I'm never going to be able to do that every night for dinner or whenever we come together. But again, they can be your role that's assigned for the day that kids are able to do regardless of whether it's a sit around the table with a big fancy meal or it's really grabbing something but bringing it home and having it at the table there. So I would say mealtime is a time when families can really just kind of do some of the same traditions that we do at camp at home.
Yeah, I love that. Do you still have that business? Could people still buy that?
That's what we started talking about. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
It's called Memorable Meal Times. And some other moms and I, several years ago, our kids were taking the class in town. And so we started meeting, and out of those conversations grew this idea to come up with a product around meal times. And the company Memorable Meal Times is definitely on a hold as we're all doing other things right now. But boy, we designed a product called the Enchanted Table. It's about conversation starters around meals. And here comes that word again. Ready? Contribution cards, so that everybody can contribute in the mealtime process. So parents out there, if you are thinking, well, serving, setting, scraping, I get it. Those are just regular household chores. Well, some other kinds of contributions that you can do at home are have your young child design something as a centerpiece for their table. It can be a Lego stack. That's great. It can be some things from outside they just arranged in the middle. It can be anything and everything. Have your child, challenge them to set the table in a really unusual way that you've never seen before. We sure see that at camp. Giving them a job, a role for the week. So that's one idea around meals.
Yeah, I love that. I still have my Enchanted dinner kit, and yes, I still have it. Yeah. But I just think that's fabulous. And I do think that, especially like if kids come back from Walton's and they've been doing these things at Walton's, what a great time to keep that up after they get home. Just have the parent to continue that. So they can even ask their kid, oh, well, what was your contribution? What did you help out with? What did you like best? Let's keep that going after you get home from camp. That's a fabulous way to kind of keep up the camp vibe even after they get home.
Well, I had a parent who said to me prior to her child coming, you're never, my child just hates meals. I can't even get him to sit at the table the whole time. I said, wow, well, how long are your meals? She goes, I'm talking 5 minutes. I can't even, it's like up and gone, just does not like mealtime. Is it kind of a picky eater? And so she was very worried that this was going to be a hindrance at camp. Maybe we were going to have a hard time keeping him at the table, or that because he just gets up and wanders and I've tried everything. Well, when she picked up her son, she found me at the welcome wagon and said, Julie, tell me the secret. I said, what? I'm going to tell me the secret. My son said he loved meals here. He loved everything about it. I said, oh yeah, you're right. You are the mom who said your son wouldn't even sit at the table. It didn't even come up. It was not a thing. She wanted to know what we did. And what I said to her was, your son loves the meals because he loves the traditions around our meals. He loves that he knows that bell is the wash your hands and get in line and here we go. And then there's a different bell, which means shh. And then there's another bell, the cowbell, that means the food's ready. The person who's the server can go and get it. He loved all of that and he loved understanding that this is how this worked. He loved having a job. He could read the chart in the dorm that said what his job was that day. The food isn't fancy. Our food is super kid friendly. It's served family style, so we don't have a huge long buffet of everything under the sun. There's something for everybody typically, and it's served separately so they can make their own combination, which is important for kids, especially when they're away for the first time and sometimes with unfamiliar food. He loved all that. He thought it was so cool that you could just pull your own things together and make it. And that was a really big kind of aha moment for her, that she didn't have to come up with the most amazing meals. It could just be really, really simple. So she and I have been in contact about that. And that's a good story to hear.
Yeah, I think for a lot of kids, those kind of transformations happen at camp. I know kids sometimes discover a new food that they never would have tried at home, but because their cabin mates and counselor are trying it, they try it. So that's another amazing kind of positive outcome that's really lasting from camp, is just new habits or new interests and that kind of thing. So that's a great story. Do you have any other stories from like parents or campers, like any testimonials that you've received? I know you get a lot. Do you happen to have one or any handy for this?
Well, I didn't have any written out in that way, but I do have that one about that meal that I just told you. I have another funny story, which I'll tell it. But
okay, yes.
Julie, I love your idea around traditions, unless it's really top secret, I need to know your string bean recipe, because every year at our Thanksgiving, everyone is allowed to choose one recipe for the meal. And so we've kind of adopted some of your traditions at camp. And so my daughter has chosen Walton's Grizzly Lodge string beans for the recipe, and I don't know how to replicate it. Could you at least tell me kind of a few tips, what you do? Well, Audrey, just the number 10 tin of string beans. It's just we'd use canned green meats for this one particular meal. Now we have plenty of fresh fruit, plenty of fresh vegetables, but for this particular meal, they were canned string beans that were served. She couldn't believe it.
Yeah. They taste better at camp though. And I have to say, like, string beans are one of those things that the canned, like the softness of them, they're pretty good that way.
Right. I know.
Yeah. So
cook them, eat them. But yeah, no, that in terms of the mealtime, that's definitely it. But in terms of testimonials in the broader sense of things, the themes that we hear are, my child comes back and says they are the happiest at camp. Yeah. They are the best version of themselves at camp. That camp is my second family. Camp is my second home. And if you haven't been to camp, And like I did as a child, or you don't work in the business, it can be very hard to understand what is this magic that we are part of, that we get to participate in every summer. But that is it. It's all of these traits and these traditions. And I know the things that you have focused on to try to highlight so that parents can have a little bit of that magic and bring it home for themselves, right?
Well, yeah. And I think that's the whole reason for this series really is just letting people know that, yes, actually at these camps like Walton's, campers really are happier than they are at home.
Right.
And there's a reason for that because you are very intentional in the way you train your staff and the way you do things to get those feelings of connection and independence and all that great stuff. So that's really kind of the magic is really not magic. It's intentional practices by people who really know what they're doing, like you. So that's what's really awesome about this, just to be able to share with people about just the work that is happening at a lot of camps, but specifically at Walton's. So, Julie, where can people find you? I'm going to put a link in the comments to your website, but why don't you just say the website name and also who can they talk to if someone has questions and they want to call? What's the process for just getting to know you a little bit better?
Sure. So, we're grizzlylodge.com. That's our website, and the phone number is there. They can call, they can email, and something that's kind of cool about our business is that you're going to get me, you're going to get my husband, or you'll get Erica and Jared, the four of us. We are still very hands-on. You can talk to any one of the four of us. Like I said, we're parents. Adam and I have a background in education. My sister-in-law, Erica, is a nurse, and Jared is our site guy. And so between all of us, we know the entirety of the business. We think that the best training, though, that we got, and not only in Jared and Adam growing up in camp, but is having our own kids. So between us, we have 5 kids, and we are taking a lot of those practices at camp that we learned growing up in camp, really, because we all 4 have, and working them with our own kids at home. And sometimes that's where we have to go to, right? We think, what's going on here? We've got this situation, or we're trying to work on this as a family. If we look back to camp and how we spend our summers and try to bring a little bit of that summer home with us in our off-season lives, then we're like, oh yeah, that's right. That works here too. So yeah. I'm so excited to be reading your book and your blog posts and just be able to share that with parents. Oh, one other thing I want to say, parents, if you want to talk to some of the leading experts in child development, camp directors. So it's not about talking to you and getting you to come to Walton's Grizzly Lodge. I will want you to send your kid to a camp for that experience of independence and connection. But really, all of us in camping are really wanting to talk to parents and to share our ideas, the things that we know are working, because we're in youth development and we love what we do. So that's how you can get a hold of us. That's where we are.
That's awesome, Julie. This has been terrific. I am so glad that we got connected through our thing. And I
tech support. Come on, we made
exactly. This has been so great, and I hope that many families reach out to you after watching this and just connect with you, whether they need advice about family dinner or green beans, or if they're thinking about Walton's for this summer. So thanks so much for coming on, Julie, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon too as we connect outside of Facebook.
Right. Audrey, thank you for having me. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining me for this Happy Campers interview bonus podcast episode. If you're interested in learning more about how you can bring home some of the magic of summer camp, I'd love for you to pick up a copy of my book, Happy Campers, 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults. It's available for pre-order now and comes out on May 7th. And you can find more information about it on my website by going to happycampersbook.com. To thank you for pre-ordering the book, I have a couple of fun freebies. The first of which is the first chapter, Camp Secret Number 1, Connection Comes First. I'll also send you an invitation to join my private Facebook group that's called the Happy Campers Book Club, where we'll be sharing resources, videos, and conversation about raising kids who become thriving adults. To access these freebies, simply pre-order your copy of the book and then fill out the form at happycampersbook.com.
Together, we can spread the happiness of summer camp to the whole world.